In this short session, I'd like to give you an outline of how to approach your assignment and the evidence booklet. This is relevant to all CMI Level 5 assessments. I've then created more specific topic guides for individual assessments. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'll use 501 as an example. There are two documents I'm going to refer to, and if we go down to Assessment, Submission and Information, we'll find them. One is the evidence booklet, that ends EB. The other is the assessment brief, and that ends AB. Please check through both before you start your assignment. So let's start with the assessment brief. On the first page of the assessment brief, let's go back up to it, we've got key information for learners. This is highly prescriptive, so please read through it carefully. I'm just going to highlight a few of the key points. You will receive, when you get your work marked, either a pass or a refer for each of the assessment criteria. They're quite explicit in terms of what they're asking for. To make the connection really clear that you've answered them, I'd use them as subheaders so you can demonstrate to the marker that you've directly addressed each of the assessment criteria. If your submission doesn't meet the requirements of the assessment brief, you'll be given specific feedback on what you need to change, and you'll be asked to resubmit it. You're also required to submit something called the evidence booklet, and I'll talk about that in more depth later. Do not include appendices because they're not marked and they're not even looked at. Your report needs to be completed professionally. So when we talk about professionally, the sorts of things we'd expect to see are a title page, table of contents, headers and subheaders. You're also required to use a referencing system. So we use the CU Harvard Reference System. And that also involves having a full reference list according to that system at the end of your document. Your file cannot be submitted in PDF, and we would recommend that instead you use Microsoft Word. You'll see further additional criteria here on the final page of the assessment brief, which give, and they're the same for all of the assessments, they show what you need to do to pass the assignment and the difference between a pass and a referral. So again, it's worth checking through these. So when it comes to referencing, if we go back to Moodle, I'll show you where you can look to get some support on this. So if you look for the H, you need to include a referencing system. What we'd suggest is the CU Harvard Referencing System, and there's some resources here. Firstly, we've got the library's details, and they can support you in terms of referencing and checking you're doing it right. Then, if we click on this booklet here, what you'll see is you've got a guide that you can download. So this is the CU Referencing Quick Guide, and there's a downloadable PDF version that you can access. There are also hard copies available in the library and at reception and the welcome desk. Also, you'd be required to include additional sources of information. So let's go back to the course that I've set up and I've mentioned we'd use as a reference point, and that's 501 MAN. So just go back to that and I'll show you the additional resources that I've included there. So what I've done is, for each of the learning criteria, I've got quite a group of references for each of the assessment criteria. So I've listed them down. There's videos, there's fact sheets, there's even some exercises there, and then you'll see all the related documents are below it. Now, in addition to this, you're also expected to do some of your own reading, and you might not be given so many resources as a starting point. In order to look for additional resources, you can use Locate. So that's the little book icon on the top menu bar. So if you click on that, that will take you to Locate. You may have to, for some of the resources, log in again, but that's the online library that's included with your fees for studying at CU Coventry. Also, you can access Management Direct. So if we go to managers.org.uk, as part of your membership of the CMI, you will have access to a huge variety of resources. And if we go down to the bottom, you'll see Management Direct here. Click onto that, and it will put your login details in there, or you need to complete them. And if you haven't got them, please check with your tutor about accessing them. But that will give you a suite of videos, articles, best practice and checklists which will support you in your assessment. Please ensure you reference them properly when using them. So let's now have a look at the evidence booklet. Just open it up. Okay. So back to 501. Now, with the evidence booklet, what you've got to do, you need to authenticate that the work that you've submitted is all your own work. So you need to sign it, although that can be electronic and that's absolutely fine, and then date it. Your tutor will then be requested to do their own, that in their opinion that you are the sole author of that work. You're then required to provide evidence of the criteria that we've already seen on the assessment brief, and you're given 6 pages of additional information that you can include in the evidence booklet. So in this one we've got 3 tasks and we've got 6 pages, so we'd say for each task you probably include an additional 2 pages of work-based evidence. So that's where you put your evidence down there. Very rarely, some of the evidence booklets detail actual specifics that they're after for you to include, and that would be relating to a specific assessment criteria, for example, that one. The only example that I've seen that in is 520, which is the finance module, which asks for some very specific information relating to putting together a budget.